Good afternoon, everyone. I hope that you are all here for the webinar titled Catholic Climate Covenant and the Laudato Si Movement, Similarities, Differences, and How to Engage with Us. I'm going to give it a couple of seconds as more folks are logging on. We have a very full program, so even though I'd like for us to take our time and give everybody time to log in, we're going to get started. I'm Paz Artaza Regan. I am the program manager at Catholic Climate Covenant, and I welcome you all. Before we get started, we have what I call always our housekeeping slide, and that means to remind you that the webinar is being recorded, and we will send a link of the recording to everyone who registered, most likely within the next 24 to 48 hours. We ask that you type your questions in the Q&A box. If you know who the question's directed to, please add that information. There is a chat feature where you can communicate with each other, but that is not the Q&A box. If you want your questions answered, we ask that they be in the Q&A box. At this point, we are going to get started with prayer. And the prayer that I chose is from the set of prayers that the Vatican has released for the 40 days of prayer and reflection for the Laudato Si Action platform. And even though today is not Friday, I chose this one because it is the prayer for groups and organizations, which is specifically what the Covenant and Laudato Si movement are. So if you would please quiet your hearts and remember that we are in the presence of God. Triune God, help our movements, NGOs, communication centers, and all groups that work for the common good to develop a spirituality of global solidarity, which flows from the mystery of who you are, an interconnected community of love. Amen. But it was appropriate that we start with that prayer. I think as you hear all the presentations, it will become quite evident that the work we do is based on this spirituality of global solidarity. We have a full house of great panelists that we are going to be hearing from. I will quickly say who they are, but as they speak, I will give a little bit more information as to each panelist. We have Dan Misleh, the founding executive director, founder of Catholic Climate Covenant. We have Nicholas Collura from EcoPhilly, Marilyn Kott, the Creation Care Ministry leader in CCT in Redlands, California. Dr. Simone Syme, who's a Laudato Si animator, and Angelica Gonzalez-Apple, who is the program manager North America for the Laudato Si movement. So the first section of the webinar will be Dan and Angelica going through an introduction to both the Covenant and the Laudato Si movement. What is its history, mission? Who are the partners? What is the constituency? We want all of you to get a good understanding of what each organization is about. And Dan will be first, and then will be Angelica. And a little information about Dan. Besides the 16 years that he spent with the Covenant, he has 11 years of work with the USCCB. First with the Justice, Peace, Human Development Department, and 3 years with the Office of Social Action in the Archdiocese of Cincinnati. And he's a former Jesuit Volunteer Corps member. Angelica, besides working with the Laudato Si movement, she has over 14 years of experience in environmental education and leadership. I can attest about her passion for her Catholic faith. It is something that is quite evident as you talk to her. She lives near LA with her husband and 5 children. And going first in this section will be Dan talking about the Covenant. Dan?
Great, thank you, Paz, and welcome everybody. Looks like we got a great turnout today. As Paz said, I've the founding the founder. Now I've changed roles. Jose Aguto on our staff is now the executive director, but I continue to work full-time for the organization as its founder. So I'll just talk a little bit about who the covenant is, what the covenant is, and what we do. So pause, next slide. So we were founded as indicated in 2006 with the support of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops. We have developed a network of 20 national Catholic partners, all of the big ones that you know and love, like Catholic Relief Services, Catholic Health Association, Catholic Charities USA, the Leadership Conference of Women Religious, and the Conference of Major Superiors of Men, and so forth. So there's could you go back one slide? Yeah. So there's a bunch of organizations that we work with, and that partnership is really kind of two-way. They help us to define our programs and agenda, and then we help them implement activities around climate change and environmental justice that's consistent with who they are. So it's a really nice kind of symbiotic relationship. We are formed mostly to do advocacy, organizing, and education. So those of you who are familiar with our work know we have tons of educational resources on our website. All of those resources are free and available for you to use. So there's that. We try to help organize in the U.S. Catholic Church through parishes and dioceses and schools, through our partners at the national level, at the grassroots level. We try to cover the waterfront in terms of how we work with the U.S. Catholic Church. Our goal is really to share the authentic Catholic teaching. We have this tagline, care for creation and care for the poor. So it's not just about polar bears, it's also about people, and particularly people who are suffering from our neglect, those who are most vulnerable to climate change and other environmental harms. Those are the folks that we try to focus on as much as we can. And, we're here to build a network for action. So next slide, pause. So we have about 30,000 people in our database. That began with the St. Francis Pledge, which was one of our first campaigns back in 2006. Recently, we had meaning in 2017, when the Trump administration pulled out of the Paris Agreement, we formed a campaign that and a declaration called the Catholic Climate Declaration. And the Catholics are still in. As you'll recall, there was a big movement at the time. We are still in. So we formed our own version of that. We had 800 Catholic institutions sign on to the declaration, including 51 dioceses and archdioceses. And we're currently doing a similar effort ahead of COP26, which is to encourage, it's a letter aimed to the administration, the Biden administration, and to Congress, which basically says our Earth is in trouble. You need to get super serious about public policies that are going to address climate change in particular. We've done a series of, we've done two of a series of 3 conferences hosted in collaboration with Creighton University to take a look at how can we integrate Laudato Si into the various ministries of the Catholic Church, everything from homiletics to higher education, schools, creation care teams, of which many of you are part. So we did our second one virtually this July, and we have a third one scheduled for the summer of 2023. Our Catholic Energies program has become a real important part of our work. It is part of our education effort, but it provides very concrete actions for parishes, schools, women religious communities, men religious communities, long-term healthcare facilities, whatever Catholic facility would like, we help them to try to adopt solar energy and energy efficiency projects. The other good thing about that is, in exchange for bringing the Catholic Church to the solar marketplace, we receive a little bit of a finder's fee, if you will, for that, which helps our other work. And then we are also the hub for the U.S. Church for the Laudato Si Action platform. Again, tons of resources on our website. So I hope if you haven't explored those, please do. I
Thank
think
you,
that's it.
Dan.
Yeah, you bet.
Yes. Angelica, you're now going to be talking about the Laudato Si movement. Do you have slides? Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Angelica Gonzalez-Apple. As Paz mentioned, I'm the program manager for the Laudato Si movement, formerly known as the Global Catholic Climate Movement. So I apologize in advance for all the confusion of our names. I think that's where a lot of this story begins, with people calling us the Global Catholic Climate Covenant or the Catholic Climate Movement. And so reasons why we changed our name are one that I just pointed out. The other is that we're a global organization, and I am new, I would say about a year old, to the Laudato Si movement. But in other parts of the world, the longer name was not translating well, and it wasn't resonating well with our membership. So that was one of the key initiators of what sparked us to change our name. But who we are and how we came to be. We are an organization that is 6 years old, and it was inspired by the Laudato Si encyclical. Tomás Insua, which is our executive director, was working on a lot of social justice groups, and wasn't seeing the connection between that and the environment. And it wasn't until his opportunity to go to the Philippines and experience and see the tremendous effects of the typhoon Haiyan that he made the connection, and just had this passion to connect with Laudato Si and reach out to as many Catholic organizations as he possibly could to get the Laudato Si movement started. Inspired definitely, as Pope Francis says here in this quote, that the encyclical was focused on Pope St. Francis, as we as well are inspired by the works of St. Francis and the work that we all do. So GCCCM at that time, the Laudato Si movement, was launched during Pope's visit to the Philippines trip. After I had mentioned that Tomás was there, we announced our launch of our movement on January 14th, 2015, by releasing the statement which Cardinal Tagle presented to Pope Francis during this visit of his in the Philippines. The Laudato Si movement, who we are. We are a spirit-led movement that brings Catholics together to fulfill its stated mission. This movement brings together a wide range of Catholic organizations and grassroots members from all around the world. These members walk together in a communion with the Universal Church on a journey of ecological conversion. One of our biggest goals is seeking unity and diversity. Our organization and our grassroots members come together to pray. We collaborate, we mobilize in response to the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor. We are guided by the Spirit and work together on both sides of the fence to really build bridges and engage our membership to live Laudato Si. So we also do training, and we bring together from that training to establish circles and chapters to help connect our global movement in a wide range of initiatives to bring Laudato Si to life. So our mission in the Laudato Si movement is to inspire and mobilize the Catholic community to care for our common home and achieve climate and ecological justice. So Paz, I can go into programming if that's okay with you.
That is perfect. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. So who we are, I mentioned animators. We have an animator program that is built of people like many of you, parishioners, people, teachers, students from all different walks of life that read the encyclical, heard about the encyclical, or are Catholics saying, I want to do something more about my environment. I want to do something for the world. And I know the Pope is really behind it, and I want to get behind it too. What do I do? So we have a course that runs 3 times throughout the year. And it's roughly about a 2-month course with only 4 webinars that you attend. It's a free course. And we teach about Laudato Si in the See, Judge, and Act format. From there, we prepare animators to go out and do a capstone project, which is engaging in your community, in your parish, in your ministry, but already trying to live Laudato Si. An animator are local leaders who strive to live Laudato Si in their own lives while inspiring and motivating others in their community to bring Laudato Si to life. We are, I say we because I also came as an animator and took the course and then became a staff person with the Laudato Si movement. So really what the goal behind an animator is to live Laudato Si in your own community and to bring it to life within your parish, and especially in areas where there is no development or talking about Laudato Si. The capstone is an opportunity to us to support you through this project and to help give you that support you need, because the idea of an animator is that they continue to do projects and engage with their community and especially in their parish. This is just a quick overview of the organization and our programs. So we work with member organizations. Again, this is a global view. These are our animators and how many animators we have throughout the world. And then these are our certified animators. So I talked about the animator program. You do a capstone. Once you complete that capstone, then you become a certified animator and you receive a certificate, you graduate through the course, and you feel more empowered and more, feel like you actually went through a course and received something, so that you have a certificate that you can take with you and take to a bishop's office. You can take to your ministry leaders and say, I could be a leader to start a green team. I've been through the course. If you take the course and don't finish the capstone, we still consider you an animator. You're just not officially certified. We have circles and we have chapters, and we have a thing called Laudato Si Generation, which was inspired by the Youth World Day in Panama. It's a movement started by youth and led by youth, and it's a global program. So I just want to give you a little glimpse of our work in the US. Here are our numbers of member organizations that we work with in the US, and animators in the US, and our certified animators. That number will change because I just graduated a group of over 40 animators that were all certified. We have 12 circles. Circles work more on retreats. This number is incorrect. There should be 12 circles there. Circles work on establishing retreats, putting together prayer services, helping us with Laudato Si prayer resources, and also helping animators have a central hub for spiritual resources. And I talked about the See, Judge, and Act. We also have different groups that meet on eco-conversion. We have an advocacy animator team and a sustainability team. So our circles help provide a lot of those resources. Chapters help provide hubs for advocacy and engaging our member organizations. And also the Laudato Si Gen helps engage youth. And so as I talked about advocacy, we tried to get our chapters really engaged and taking their local action, national action, and getting involved in global action as well. We work with interfaith groups. We've been currently working with Green Faith, Interfaith Power and Light on various fossil fuel campaigns. I won't go through all the details because I know we're pressed for time. And I mentioned Laudato Si Gen. It is a youth-led program. And our key events are working around Season of Creation and Laudato Si Week. So I invite you all, many of you have already been working with the Covenant and with the movement on these key events, but those are really what we strive to have our animators work on and have a connection with their community and help our support in the Catholic world. And currently we are working on the Healthy Planet, Healthy People petition. where we've been trying to get as many signatures that we will deliver with a Vatican official to both COP15 and COP26, which our deadline is the 28th. So if you are still contemplating on signing that, I hope that you do it today, and definitely invite about 20 more friends to help you sign that petition as well. And so I will leave the next part to pause.
Thank you, Angelica. Yes, I will now do a very quick, also 20,000 feet view of some of the programs of the covenant. And we could probably all spend about 10 minutes on each of them. Do report, ask Angelica and I later on, send us emails if you want more information on any of the programs, initiatives that we are talking about. So I've put on this slide some of the major programs and initiatives that the covenant has been on their agenda for the next year, probably. So you see there, Catholic Energies, Dan did mention them. That is, if you want to have someone look at how you can become more energy efficient or install solar panels in your Catholic facilities. There's the Creation Care Team program. That is a program that takes your hand and holds it while you create a team and move it and enlarge it. There, Dan talked about the Laudato Si in the US conferences, of which we've had 2 of the 3 in the series. The next one will be in 2023. There's the new Youth Young Adult Mobilization Program. There, the educational programs that we have, Earth Day and the Feast of St. Francis. And I'll talk a little bit more about the We Are All Part of God's Planet campaign. All of these things are part of our programming. Resources is what the covenant really is very much in putting its mission into, giving resource to the US Catholic Church for you all to be able to have programming locally. You will find homily helps and bulletin blurbs. If you want to have a Laudato Si study, if you want to have more information on creation care, Catholic teachings, looking at what popes and the fathers and mothers of the church have said about creation care. We have webinars. Sometimes they're really looking at how to help a creation care team do something better. And many times they're like this one that is open to everybody. We have a section about how we as individuals, but more as community, can reduce our carbon footprint. And we also have prayer and worship resources. Spoke a little bit about the programs, advocacy, as Dan mentioned, the petition and the institutional letter, but we also have action alerts for specific issues. The most current one is on the Build Back Better in US Congress and trying to get folks to sign to that. We have a Catholic Climate Ambassadors program, which are specially trained folks, in many ways like the animators, but it's a much smaller program. We also have the St. Francis Pledge, which Dan mentioned. All of these you will receive with the slide deck, and they are all hyperlinked where you can go and find more information. I wanted to spend a little bit more time with the Laudato Si Action platform. The covenant has been named the US hub for the platform. What that means is that the covenant and its partners are looking and seeing how we can engage the full US church into this. And we have partners that sit in the working groups at the Vatican for each of their sectors. And they also are helping to plan how to engage the Catholic Church in the US. In the covenant staff sits on the parishes and diocese working group, for example. Catholic Health Association would sit in the health sector. Religious orders that are part of that are partners with the covenant are the leads also within the religious order, and so forth. We created the We Are All Part of God's Planet campaign and website in order to engage and mobilize the US Catholic Church with the platform. It is not meant to replace the platform. It is accompanying the platform. So if you're a US Catholic and you enter into this website, you would be able to find out news and stories, things that others are doing in your sector. You would be able to put up events so that others know something's happening in your area or that you'd like others to know about. We just closed out the grants, the Victory Knoll Sisters grants, small grants. We had almost 240 applications, and we'll probably be able to let everybody know probably by no later than mid-November, hopefully much earlier than that. If there's advocacy from the US Catholic community, this is going to be the umbrella place where you would be able to see what other groups and the covenant are advocating for. So I do recommend that you go to this website. There is a store that has just opened up. We are testing it, where you can download free things, the logo, prayer card, flyers, bulletin, posters, and you can also order co-branded things. We know that a lot of Catholic parishes want to have t-shirts or the tote bags that can be co-branded, especially for youth groups. This is a good place where you can really engage young people. That is all for me. Nicholas is going to be next. And we're going to sort of shift from being looking at the big picture of the covenant and Laudato Si movement and looking at how more at the local level these groups work and resource. And Nicholas is a board certified healthcare chaplain who directs a team of hospice chaplains at a Catholic health system in Philadelphia. He's also a former Jesuit, a practicing spiritual director and retreat director, and a Doctor of Ministry student at Fordham University's Graduate School of Religion and Religious Education. He's the co-founder and coordinator of EcoPhilly, the creation care initiative of the Archdiocese of Philadelphia. Nicholas, it's all yours. I will advance the slides, so just let me know.
Thank you, Paz, and hello, everyone. It's really good to be here with 277 other participants. What a great number. So just to tell briefly my own story of how I relate to these two organizations. When I first had the impetus to do something climate related, I probably just Googled and found out about the Laudato Si animators program. So I'm one of those animators that Angelica talked about, and I met someone else in Philadelphia who's going through the program, a guy named John Humphreys. And he and I, for our capstone, I think one of the things that the program and the training program is so good. I mean, it gives you a lot of information, but it's easy to follow along on your own time. And it covers, it gives you a sense of the whole scale of this issue that we're facing. So it encouraged John and me to really dream big for our capstone. And we had the idea of writing an open letter to the Archbishop of our Archdiocese, basically asking him if he couldn't invest some resources and energy into some kind of sustainability or creation care initiative in the Archdiocese. And the next slide is just a little glimpse of that letter. I'm happy to share language if anyone else feels inspired to do something similar. We were bracing ourselves just to be activists, expecting that maybe we wouldn't get a response or that the answer would be no. But we were very grateful that the answer was a qualified yes. It was we support what you're doing directly from the Archbishop, but we don't have the resources to pay someone to do it or to create a whole office. Would you like to do something? And so John and I kind of got engaged in this labor of love. And that called us to go from a kind of an activist stance into a diplomatic stance of working with a number of different parties within the Archdiocese across an ideological perspective, across a faith landscape, trying to bring as many people on board as we could. And our goal is essentially to create a creation care team in every Catholic school, parish, and institution in the Archdiocese over the course of the next 7 years as part of our commitment to the Laudato Si action platform. And so when we found ourselves kind of representing now the Archdiocese, we said, well, we didn't necessarily know that this would be our responsibility. We weren't quite sure how to begin, and that's when the covenant came in really handy, Catholic Climate Covenant. So we get to network with a bunch of diocesan people across the country who have all sorts of different initiatives going on in their home dioceses. And there's just a real sense of community and inspiration in those groups, so we can kind of look at what they're doing and try to implement something on our end too. So on the next slide, here's our little website. We're ecophilly.org. Would encourage anyone who's interested in learning more. There's a contact page, especially I saw someone in Philadelphia on this call whose name I didn't recognize. Please feel free to reach out and compare notes. We can go to the next slide. So just a few bullet points. This is the Catholic Climate Covenant. We find community, we learn from one another, locally. So Anna Robertson, who works with youth and young adults, PAS just knows everybody there is to know who's doing this kind of work. So we were able to get so many wonderful connections to people locally in Philadelphia. And then, like I said, there's that connection to the national network, and we learn from one another. Some great resources that come along, for example, is where, requesting that Archbishop Perez and our archdiocese consider signing on to the Laudato Si action plan. The covenant was able to share a letter from Cardinal Turkson in the Vatican that kind of helped to legitimize this work. And then the next slide is just to add a few bullet points for Laudato Si movement. That's that connection to the Vatican as well, and to kind of an international movement, as well as ongoing training, support, and motivation for individuals that we encounter here in Philadelphia who, okay, maybe, our initiative has inspired them to think about what they can do in their own community, but what exactly did they do? And as we're trying to provide some supportive resources for that, because we're not writing an agenda or anything, we're kind of leaving each community to discern what they want to do. We can throw them to the Laudato Si movement, say, we started because we did this wonderful training program, and we encourage you to do that as well, so that you can have some support and encouragement and inspiration to do your own capstone. So really just between these two movements, it's been incredible support, incredible resources that have helped us both in the macro scale and in the micro scale of our own work.
Thank you, Nicholas. And I want to sort of repeat that Nicholas is both a Laudato Si animator. So he came to this issue from that area, and from there he found the covenant who has helped support with resources as well. Thank you. And we moved Nicholas up. He won't be able to be, I believe, at the end for Q&A, but if you have questions for Nicholas, I could pass them on. Thank you, Nicholas. We're moving now to Marilyn Kott. Marilyn is the team leader of the Laudato Si Ministries at Holy Name of Jesus Parish in Redlands, California. She's going to share more about herself, but I just wanted to pick up a couple of things. That she's a 26-year plus veteran of the U.S. Air Force. She's both a pilot, staff officer, and commander. And she spent 3 years as a Marinol missionary in Sao Paulo, Brazil, doing prison and homeless ministry. And Marilyn, you're going to share, I believe, your slides, correct? Okay,
yes, that's true.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Well, thanks for that introduction. And gosh, thanks for everything that we've learned already. As Paz gave me an introduction already. Let's see if I can show this the way I'd like to. But just, briefly, like the others, there's a point where, I think I always thought I cared about the earth, and I always thought I was environmental. And about 4 years ago, I realized how much I really wasn't. I had sort of an eco conversion when I learned about the story of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. And when I was in the Air Force, I had been stationed in the Pacific on Guam, in fact, and had visited Midway Atoll, Midway Island, where some of the worst effects of the plastic island are. And that really, really energized me. I knew that my husband and I weren't going to stay with Marinol forever. And we were coming back to the US to be near family. And we had read Laudato Si as part of our Marinol training as we went in, and that all of that came together in me wanting to do creation care when I came back to the U.S. So that's how it all started. Briefly, our ministry group. So we're about 2.5 years old, kind of depending on how you count. The first year was almost all just bulletin blurbs, which our parish communicator was very supportive of. And so we started, I think, developing the spirituality and the connection between faith and the environment. And I don't mean that we did it, but our parish allowed us an avenue to kind of help the parish understand that. And so we feel very fortunate about that. So about a year into it, when we were coming together and we were going to do, Lenten soup supper and, 40 things you can do during Lent for the environment, then COVID shutdown happened. And so we transitioned to Zoom and to Flocknote and to a website that actually gave us an opportunity as a very small group to develop a little bit together. We spent a lot of time doing things like reading Laudato Si, and also reading, for example, during Easter season, reading the Acts of the Apostles through the lens of Laudato Si. And if you were trying to get the word out the way the apostles were, what would you want to know? After the COVID restrictions started to ease, we were able to go and organize outdoor type activities for our parish to get them involved in a physical way. And people were just happy to be outside and happy to do something for the environment. In general, speaking of See, Judge, Act, I heard someone say it earlier, the way our ministry is organized is 3 meetings per week. Per month. We try to start the month with a faith share that has something to do with Laudato Si. And we might view it through the lens of, for example, in December, the incarnation, Jesus' birth. And then our second meeting of the month is kind of more like the business meeting. Okay, what do we want to do? What have we learned? And then the third event is just some sort of physical, let's get together and do something. Our first ever was just 4 of us in a park picking up trash. But we've been out, and there's a conservancy organization in our city. So we've worked with them for restoration projects. As an example, but as we started this, I think what we hope to influence, I feel like that's our biggest job, is helping people connect their faith to environmentalism. And so we view it as 3 audiences, the parishioners themselves, the parish staff, and then the ministry groups. Very long introduction. Okay, so somewhere when I mentioned that I was going through an eco-conversion based on plastic islands in the Pacific, and somewhere along the line, I learned of the Catholic Climate Covenant and ministry in a church that was based on Laudato Si. And so the Catholic Climate Covenant provided the resources and the ideas for me and a couple of like-minded people to sort of organize ourselves and understand what ministry might look like at the parish level. I really find that the way we're best supported is that there's a very particular way, in my experience, you have to speak to American Catholics, especially in suburban areas, and the language and the activities and the resources from the covenant help us to do that. So they help us to put hands-on with our work. Lots of great resources and a really amazing opportunity for networking. You read about somebody's project and then you reach out to their parish and you're able to learn from them directly. Switching over to Laudato Si Movement, which I will say is a lot easier to say than Global Catholic Climate Movement. What we as an American creation care ministry most take advantage of probably are your prayers and reflections. It is so amazing to hear someone speaking English from the other side of the world, either in Africa, in Northern Europe, or Oceania, and talking about their particular love of creation and love of the Catholic Church and the problems that they're facing. And in fact, I put a website up there. I still remember last June, one of the closing reflections from a young man named Ernest in Fiji. It was so beautiful. I've probably shown it in 4 different Zoom settings to 4 different groups, just a 5-minute hope-filled but determined prayer and reflection on taking care of God's planet. We also find concrete actions that keep us hopeful. I also put another website up there, recent webinar about divestment that's happening And the speakers were mostly from Ireland, England, and Luxembourg, but it made it seem like it was doable. And so that was very helpful. And then just seeing other initiatives from other parts of the world outside the American experience, and especially the suburban experience, kind of keeps us, I think, from becoming too interested in ourselves and worrying about our own problems in a navel-gazing kind of way. We might be arguing over, dryer sheets or something, and then we find actually a lot of people in the world just hang their clothing outside to dry, and they're grateful for when they can wash it. Last slide I had for you, just hopefully really quickly. Our suggestions are to start by reading Laudato Si together and pray a lot, never forget to pray. And then, as I have mentioned once or twice already, help your parish and your parishioners connect the need to care for creation to our Catholic faith. Be grateful, be patient, be hopeful. That's what these two organizations will help you do, and network. When you feel like you're running into brick walls, it's other folks in other organizations that will help you. And my get off the stage slide is the Leighton albatross on Midway Island with its chick. So thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. At this point, I will start sharing again. And we have a few minutes. We have to be unfortunately compressing a little bit. Next speaker is Dr. Simone Syme, who is a Laudato Si animator. And she is also a Laudato Si animator of animators. I had to read that. A mentor to the animators. She's also a climate reality leader and mentor. She co-chairs the Green Team at the Cathedral of St. Matthew the Apostle in Washington, D.C. And she was part of the group that was instrumental for having the Archdiocese of Washington implement and have a Laudato Si action plan. Dr. Syme, Simone, can you please begin your presentation? Are you muted, perhaps?
So thank you, Paz, and hello to everybody. It's just such a joy to be with you and to have this conversation. So I'm really grateful and joyful to be here and to be able to speak to you. So the Laudato Si movement is global, complex, and on an ongoing journey. And it is, I would define myself today as a result of that as a pilgrim, a missionary disciple on the path of synodality, embracing ecological conversion and racial justice. I'm in depth grateful for the many things we learn with the Laudato Si movement. We are able to learn, and the matter of fact that it is global means a lot to me. I lived and worked on 3 continents. I speak several languages, and this is something, it's just, it ties into my life story, and it is beautiful, just beautiful to learn from other Christians or people of goodwill from all over the world who embrace Laudato Si and want to do something for the cry of, listen to the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor. So our Holy Father, Pope Francis, wants us to become expert in the art of encounter. So on Earth Day 2021 at the Cathedral of St. Matthew, we had a film, we were invited to a film luncheon via Zoom to watch together the award-winning short film Forest Man by William Douglas McMaster, starring Chadha Payeng, the so-called Forest Man. And we want to enjoy good conversation about environmental justice, ecological conversion, and change of heart. So Chadha Payeng, the protagonist, belongs to the mission tribe in Assam, India. And to pay homage to the wisdom of indigenous stewards, both present and ancestral, distinguished guest theologian, Indian film and media specialist Ray Papa Kanchala from a diocese of New Delhi Caritas India, Save the Children International, and Global Catholic Climate Movement, now Laudato Si Movement, fellow Laudato Si animator and animator mentor, facilitated an interview with Jadav Payeng. And this is actually a little bit something, for he is in the southern part of India. The connection is difficult. The language, he speaks the language, for he comes from the south as well, and facilitated that for us. And it was very special to cooperate with another Laudato Si animator and animator of animators in such a meaningful way. I'm very grateful. And it was actually participants started to join other programs we have in our green team as a result of that. So this is interconnected, and it was beautiful. We are called to trust that the Holy Spirit will show us to guide our way and teach us the path to healing, restorative justice, active patience, as we discern what it is that God wants to say to us at this time, and in which direction God wants to lead us. And I have another close cooperation with another leader, Marjorie Louise Mart from Haiti. And she is so creative in bringing joy through Laudato Si to youth in a moment where there is so much violence and fear and not good things around her. I invited her to a program we had, well, we're doing it online still, with our green team at the cathedral, and we're exchanging a lot of what she does, and hopefully in the future we will continue to have a good collaboration. So, and this is just two examples, so we have to be brief, but it is, in addition to working on the local level, it is a beautiful thing, if you're interested in that, to have this global connection, to learn from each other and to collaborate. It's a blessing. It's a blessing to me. And I'm just very grateful that this conversation happens today. And I'm grateful to both leaders and of course to our wonderful Angelica. Thank you.
Thank you, Simone. The last part, and I'm going to have to ask Dan and Angelica to sort of compress their comments because we will need some time for Q&A, though most of the questions are being answered one-on-one. We need to talk about, so from this conversation, what are the similarities, differences, overlaps? What's the complementary work? How do we get this confusion between what the covenant is, what Laudato Si movement is? Where do we work together? Where are we different? I'm going to ask on Dan and Angelica. I don't know how you want to go, one or the other. Who wants to go first?
Go ahead, Dan.
I was afraid you're going to say that. Yeah, so I mean, obviously the big difference is one is national, one is global. But obviously Laudato Si movement has a lot of activities in the United States for which we are enormously grateful because it does help build the movement. You know, I think you know, there was a question in an email yesterday about, you know, why, you know, for example, why do we have these two petitions? You know, the Healthy Planet one for Laudato Si movement and our leader letter to Congress and the administration. Well, we feel very strongly that we got to have the Congress and the administration on board and working hard to do as much as they can to address the climate issue. So that has been our campaign for folks in the United States. We encourage people to sign both statements. So there are times when you know, both organizations are moving very quickly to try to respond to as much as we can with our limited resources, limited staff, and all of that. And sometimes the communication is not what it maybe could be. But on the other hand, I think we are both highly respectful of each other's roles, each other's programs, and happy to continue to try to partner as best we can with one another.
Great, thank you, Dan. Angelica?
I agree. I have just a couple bullet points I could share on my screen that I had pointed out. I think on the most part, one of the things that Dan said is that we are in this together to try to support you all. And that's really the core of our work. I would say that the difference is, yes, that we're global. Our animators program perhaps sometimes are different advocacy focuses, which is kind of the joy of this all. In the environmental world where I came from, in the secular world, you have all kinds of green organizations and they all work on different campaigns. Many times the membership would like them to all work on one thing together, but sometimes their own missions or funding or different objectives doesn't always overlap in ways. And where we can, we're really trying to make an effort to work together. And that's something that I've heard a lot of feedback from our animators, from our partner organizations. So we really want to do that. Monthly prayer services, and as Marilyn just pointed out, I'm glad that they are a resource. We really try to focus on the global aspect as we have it in our on our objective to work with not only hear the cry of the earth, but hear the cry of the poor, and actually let them be part of our work and that uplift their voices. And we work collaboratively, work closely with the dicastery. I particularly don't, but I have staff members that do. So a lot of the initiative, as Dan mentioned, are quick, and we just don't have enough time to do meetings where we can decide on different things. One thing that's really great is that we're on each other's steering committees, which gives us an opportunity to learn from what we're doing and collaborate, but also know that we are two different organizations. We are comprised by member organizations and partner organizations inside and outside the US. And we also partner with secular organizations like 350.org, Stop the Money Pipeline, and work on specific fossil fuel campaigns. And we engage in global climate strikes and local climate strikes. So I just really would love to hear. I'm glad that you've already been offering questions up, but leave some space for that.
Perfect. One of the questions, in fact, I think piggybacks on this whole issue. There was a question about what is the difference between a Laudato Si circle and a creation care team? Excellent question. And then the corollary there was, does the Laudato Si movement or Catholic Climate Covenant have requirements for circles and creation care teams to be recognized? I'll talk a little bit, Angelica, about CCTs, and then you can talk about Laudato Si circles. Creation care teams was a program that started in 2015 with the idea to resource and assist local Catholics in parishes, dioceses, religious orders, schools, to be able to work together on these issues. So it wasn't so much as I'm an individual Catholic that wants to work on this by myself, but how do we come together as a community? So we have only one requirement, that you register your creation care team. At that point, you start receiving resources. You would receive a monthly email. You have access to a resource library with about 8 or 9 toolkits. You have access to webinars, and you have access to me. I don't want to sell it that way, but I'm basically then available to help you if you have an issue, if you need some other resources, or if you need to connect with somebody. We also are able to put you on the map, and we only do that after permission. We don't want to be sharing anybody's info, but if you do give permission, we put you on the map. There are more than 400 creation care teams in the US at the moment, of which about a fourth are on the map. But if you don't see somebody there, we can connect you behind the scenes. No other requirement. It is really a place for you to be able to access resources and for us to be able to say, look, this is what the US Catholic Church is. This is strong. They have creation care teams in these places. Angelica?
believe me, you want to be connected to Paz. She definitely helps you network. I came through Paz and she connected me with so many people in Southern California that I still have relationships with. And I've also been engaged in an interfaith group in LA that some of them are part of. So it is great to have this resource. For us, circles, chapters, the requirement is that you do go through the animator training and you get certified. One, because you would align and make sure that you align with our values. Circle is, as I mentioned previously, it is a place and a group in a parish or a ministry that can provide eco-spiritual resources and a place to help grow in spirituality. We understand that not all animators want to work in all dimensions of eco-conversion, sustainability, and advocacy. We understand that some just want to do eco-spirituality work and do not want to get involved in politics and actually advocate. So circles are a hub for that, to help us prepare prayer services and help us for our resources. Chapters, again, you have to be a certified animator to begin a chapter, and we need to know that you are partnered with a partner organization or a member organization, or you're within a religious order, so that you have resources and support. We have a chapter in Boston, we have a chapter in Canada, and we have a chapter in New York. And they are all closely tied in with different parishes, dioceses, and they are pretty much running on their own. They're independent, and they connect with us on a various, they just report what are they working on. We have a guide of what it takes to be a chapter, but we don't create your agenda. We definitely want them to be involved and connected, but also a resource and a hub for, as the animators graduate, we can say, there's a chapter here, there's a circle here, join them and help grow the movement.
Thank you, Angelica. I just add that the chapters are not that separate from covenant work, because in the US, the chapters end up working with our interdiocesan network. They're trying to get their diocese also to work on these issues. So and in some places, they are the diocesan-wide type of entity. And so they are connecting to us through that. I think I have a question, and it may be for, let's see. I think it was a question that came twice regarding Native people and Indigenous communities. Dan, do you want to talk a little bit about the covenants beginning work with Native communities in the US? And Angelica, maybe you'll talk a little bit about the Laudato Si movement.
Yeah, most of the work in the covenant on this issue has been done by Jose, the executive director, Jose Agudo, and it's pretty preliminary at this point. Although we did, for example, support the Pawnee Seed Project, which was gave them a little bit of money, built a relationship with that organization, trying to save kind of ancestral corn seeds. This was in the middle of a I certainly won't remember all the details, but there was a storm and the freezer was not coming back up, so we helped them buy a freezer to store the corn seed. Jose is also working very closely with folks at the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops and other organizations that are reaching out to Native American communities. Of course, the difficulty at the present time is, there's this tremendous pain and hurt after the revelations of, the mass graves in Canada at some Catholic-run schools, and some of that has happened in the U.S. as well. So, there's time to kind of step back and let those wounds take their course. But we are certainly looking at more collaboration with Native communities.
Thank you, Angelica. And you only have like 15 seconds. I'm sorry.
Sorry, Angelica.
Yeah, I would just say that the work that the Laudato Si movement is with doing, well, global, we work with many indigenous communities in South and Central America. And they work closely with our staff and have been able to connect with the Vatican and the Pope and get their voices heard. Here in the US, I would refer to our partner organizations, as Dan mentioned, the St. Kateri. We've also worked with Interfaith Power and Light. Sister Joan has been working there on the ground in New Mexico, and many other sisters that are working with the people, have built up trust and have a relationship. So rather than us become the experts on it or want to do that, we would refer them to them and provide you with resources if that's something that would interest you.
Thank you. And our final thing, because it is 3 o'clock, thank you to all our panelists. Incredible information. If I have questions that have not been answered, I will answer them one-on-one or send them your way. If you have questions, you can send them to info@catholicclimatecovenant.org or Angelica@laudatosimovement.org. You also have there the 3 websites that you can go for more information. The recording and the webinar slides will be sent to you within the next 24 to 48 hours. Thank you, and I'm sorry that we didn't get to everybody's questions. I see some that are just starting now. I will try to reply to them. Thank you, everybody. Take care. Bye.